Hello, and welcome to People Keep Dying, a podcast about people who die. I'm your host, Angela.
And I'm your other host, Stephanie.
And today I decided to go for an older story, which is kind of your thing.
Yeah.
But I'm still hitting up an Asian nationality.
So it's ancient Asians?
No. It's not like the 1800s.
Oh,
it's just older for me.
Ancient Asians. That would be, hey, you should do some ancient Asian
No, their
stories.
names are way too confusing for me. And like most Koreans, because like Japan basically controlled Korea for so long, and it's like a whole thing.
Yeah.
There was a mass killer I was going to cover, but there isn't a ton of it. I need to go like research.
Yeah, there's probably
Just do lots of research.
do lots of research and like stop being like Stephanie and stop being so lazy. If you can't find it on Murderpedia, it doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm. This one I think might exist on Murderpedia now because when I think about 3 years ago when I was on Facebook, there was like all of a sudden these articles about like the Chinese people who lived in Los Angeles and like this big like massacre that happened.
Okay.
I'd never heard of it. So
Is that what you're talking to me about now?
So
Wait, I thought we were talking about something from the 1800s.
no, this is 1800s.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought a Chinese massacre also happened 3 years ago and we were going to talk about. Whoa.
Yeah.
All right. No, I'm excited. Tell me about your massacre.
So
Massacres.
in a pretty unsurprising history lesson,
Okay.
during the mid to late 1800s, there was a lot of anti-Chinese sentiments, meaning
Yeah.
a lot of people were really racist.
It still hasn't changed.
At least they don't publicly kill people.
Yeah. Well, no, we still do that too.
You know what?
Well, they don't publicly kill people the way that they used to publicly kill people.
Yeah, it wasn't like a thing where you take
we're-
children to go see people get hanged. There it is. You don't take children to see people get hanged. That's a public thing anymore.
Yeah,
in the States.
We try not to bring our children to these kinds of things, but we still let them watch it on YouTube.
Yes, and just so you know, because there's lots of terrible things that hasn't even been happening every freaking week, and we're pre-recording.
Oh yeah.
This is gonna come out way after. So public killings, like the whole Christchurch incident, is terrible. And then right after that shooting in, like, I think it was Dutch, or I don't even know. I know there was a shooting.
Yeah.
And
There was a lot. There's
too many.
Every
First of
once
all,
in a
one's
while-
too many.
Yeah.
But like the Christchurch one was awful. Like,
here's the part that
what?
bothered me. I mean, everything bothers me about the Christchurch one, but here's the part that bothered me the most about the Christchurch one. I mean, other than the fact that it was in New Zealand. So, and it's not to say that if it happens in another country, then it shouldn't matter anywhere else. But it was one of those things where it was in New Zealand, and it was the way that guy targeted like American media.
yeah.
Because he knew it was gonna blow up. Like,
I mean,
what he
like
wanted.
right before he started shooting, he said subscribe to PewDiePie.
Yeah,
that was a total.
Okay, so the whole blaming the gamer.
No, that was
Okay, no, but to
that's
get the media
attention for sure.
First of all, I didn't watch the video, but my partner
I
did
didn't
say,
watch it either.
My
I
partner
just
did
read
say
it.
that he did click on it and he saw parts, and he was like, "Yeah, the camera was set up on the guy's gun so that you would
my
see it
God.
from a first person
as
shooter,
if you're like a shooter,
as if
yeah.
you're playing a video game."
That's awful.
And it's just like, this was orchestrated. He had a manifest, like this was so orchestrated, and he did it in such a way where it hit all the parts that would ignite American media.
Yeah.
Just ignite American media. Now, I don't know what's going on over in New Zealand. I don't know the social climate. I don't know what their media's like, or media across the world. I imagine they're pieces of shit just like they are here.
I mean, what is it?
Yeah.
The Australian senator who later was just like, well, basically it was their fault for being here.
Oh my God. Is that the guy that got egged and then hit the kid in the face?
And choked him and then hit. Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. Dude. Okay. And now
overreact.
I understand that there's a whole big like reaction over, we are derailing so hard, but that's fine because we didn't have chit chat in the beginning. Sorry, listeners, we're going to talk about this. So the egg guy, there's all this debate over the kid with the egg, and I'm just kind of like, okay, yeah, he shouldn't have done it, but people have been like doing shit like that
Bush,
since the beginning of time.
Bush got like
Bush
two
got a
shoes. Yeah,
like,
and you didn't see him punch someone in the face.
It's all a thing. However, that senator should have had the common sense to not turn around and immediately start punching.
Yeah.
Not just once, but twice. That dude is a douchebag.
Yeah.
Like,
but I mean, everything that comes out of his mouth.
Yes,
Basically
100%. Yeah, everything that comes out of his mouth.
It's not surprising he was a complete piece of shit. Is really what it was.
And they're like taking
the fact
this
that
moment
he,
to,
I don't know how he got to the position he's in. I don't understand what's.
I mean, how did Donald Trump get to the position that he's in? Like, shit happens. It's
we
just
need education. That's what we need. We need better education because that is really what happens, right?
Yeah.
Like you start taking away money from public education, and then people start learning more. Like stop learning as much, and then they start.
They control like when they control what people learn.
Yeah,
and it's just like, oh man. Anyways,
but in the end, don't be fucking shitty. Why are you hating people just because of like they? So it's somehow different if you're Christian and people hate you because you're a Christian, but if you're Muslim and they hate you, then it's okay.
Yeah.
It's not like I don't understand that weird like mindset.
Do you know what I have do you know what I spent a lot of time thinking about is like what would it have been like 200 years ago if they would have had the internet? And like the social, because it's not like we're in a new social climate.
No, it's just that
it's not like we're the first generation that has experienced this kind of racism. Because they had it a hell of a lot.
Persecution has been around for a very long time.
Forever.
Wasn't the 700-year war about religion as well? So
every single since
it's always been like this
for thousands upon thousands of years.
I'm so sad by that. We've never actually grown out of any of this. We're just repeating history over and over again.
We're living in it now.
Yeah.
So we look at it now and we're just like, this is the worst time ever, and blah 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 blah. But
it was pretty bad back then too.
Time has always sucked.
All this research we've done recently, or research that we've both done, is proven that we haven't actually learned that much from history, unfortunately.
And in a lot of cases, stories just happen to like keep repeating itself, and it's not because Joe Blow read this story on, some murder and then went out and killed a crime, which does happen. That does happen. But it's like, people from all over parts of the world, like it's a human condition to kill. Yeah. Like anyone is capable of it. And a lot of people
done in the Bible immediately
Fucking, it is just, we've been doing it since the beginning of time. It's just, now it's become less civilized. We don't consider it to be civilized.
We just
We've
don't
put
we
value
just changed
on human
our mindset.
life.
That's what it was.
And we've been trying to grow out of being like quote unquote savage, which like
I think we are biologically so savage.
Yeah. It's just innate. It's an innate ability. We just are trained not to do it anymore. And that's really what it is.
Yeah,
we are taught not to hurt other people, and for some people that doesn't work.
It's just so shitty.
Because animals are gonna animal and humans are gonna human,
and they shouldn't.
And like there's so much history that just shows like we're like humans just are not great. So
stopping from the derailing. So anyways,
we couldn't talk about some of the things that we wanted to talk about. Our heart goes out to all the families of all the victims,
the community,
and anyone that is affected by this. And
let's all not
really
be shitty people.
Let's just try for another day of. And it's exactly what you said. We're at the beginning where it was like this. It happens all the time.
Yep.
All the time, everywhere. There's always a shooting somewhere. There's always a killing somewhere. And it's so much sometimes that it's so emotionally exhausting to like, yeah.
Well, back in the 1800s.
Yeah, back in the 1800s, where it also sucked.
Unsurprisingly, everyone, you just shoot whoever you want.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Dude, I think about the Wild West sometimes and just like...
And this was the Wild West.
Yeah.
Like when I was looking up the story, it was one of those things where it's like, holy fuck.
No, they didn't give a shit. Humans... Okay, yeah, we were just killing everybody. But please tell me about your...
So there was
massacre.
a distrust by the white and mestizo race, which is usually referred to as Spanish and indigenous descent.
Okay.
Mestizo race. They're like a
Okay.
mixed race when like the Spanish and indigenous people had like babies, and so
Okay.
yeah. And there was like this, they were distrusted by those people who lived in Los Angeles because this happened in LA.
Okay.
So it didn't stop them though from allowing the Chinese to settle in the region because Chinese people were cheap labor and they needed to build buildings, cities, and railroads. And you know, like this, I think, yeah, slavery was abolished, so they needed to find cheap labor again. And you know,
Now, I apologize for this comment. I'm so sorry that I'm going to say this. I assume then that the Chinese labor was cheaper than the Mexican labor, or the Spanish?
the Spanish were still kind of more in power at this point because yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This was still when they were still more
Okay.
powerful.
I didn't realize
in
that
the
there,
late,
I don't know.
I mean,
Southern
why
American
would you?
history.
I
like-
don't know a lot
yeah.
of history, but from what I was reading, it did sound like they had a
Okay.
lot more power back then.
Before whites came in?
Before
and took over like everything?
before they like started making up all these rules for themselves. And then, yeah. But while the Chinese population expanded, they were still considered an alien group because not only do us Asian people look very different, but we also eat different foods and eat differently.
It's culture.
It's very cultural. But back then, you can say alien and not sound racist because they don't care.
Yeah, because it's alien. Words meant different things to them back then, and alien was just anything that was alien. And it's not alien in terms of like extraterrestrial.
But
It's just different.
For them,
it's different than what I'm used
to. It probably
to.
even meant extraterrestrial to
Probably.
them, just because
It's just-
that's how it was back then. You can be offended by all the awful things that happened, but it's like it already happened a long
Language
time
was
ago,
different.
and they thought it was okay.
Language and the use of language was way different back then, and like the meanings of words, certain words,
Lots
like
of
just
words,
a lot of different words just meant differently back then than it does now.
Yeah.
Just people might realize that, but just in case you didn't, you needed to be
just in
told.
case, yeah. So in 1863, the state legislature had passed a law that Asians could not testify in court against whites, making them vulnerable to abuse and injustice. Because it turns out if you can't go to court and defend yourself ever,
Yeah.
then they will just fuck you up and ruin everything. Because why
you
wouldn't
can't
you?
defend yourself?
Yeah.
Anybody can accuse you of anything.
So
This is a kangaroo court. Sorry.
In 1868, the Burlingame Treaty was signed with the Chinese Empire setting conditions for immigration, finally. Because they were just like, what the fuck is going on there?
Yeah.
So at this time, many Chinese workers who immigrated were men, which makes sense because they made up most of the labor, who intended to stay only temporarily. And the Chinese community in LA numbered fewer than 200, and 80% of them were men.
Wow.
So you know those 20% of women were prostitutes for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were sex workers.
Yeah, they were all, I guess. Well, back then they would call them. I think they would call them prostitution, right? So
Yeah, but it's now we call it sex workers. But it's also just like, I mean,
Because
was
I read
it
the
by choice
Yeah.
for them? Like, I would still think that it's not. Yes, it's still sex work, but it's prostitution because they
I
probably
feel like-
didn't have much of a choice.
Yeah, because I always feel like sex workers is like if you choose
yeah,
it
if you
more,
choose
but
it.
when you're forced into something, I always feel like
Yeah.
that's like sex
Labor?
Is
Yeah.
it? Yeah, sex labor.
There are sex.
sex slave.
But you can't.
But you don't want to say slaves
because
either.
you don't want to say a sex slave. You don't want to say a sex laborer because that sounds weird.
And you can't say, but you don't. You know it's not.
But
signified.
nowadays it's wrong to say prostitution. So you know what? Back in the day they said prostitution. We're gonna keep the same word for this one. Please don't send us hate mail. We know that it's sex work.
But back in the day,
But back in
it
the
was
day.
really shitty. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
And there's like a couple questionable things I'm gonna say because this was back in the day and I'm quoting
Yes.
things.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry.
They're their quotes, not our quotes.
Yeah. So the frontier nature of LA was already pretty rough, as we know.
Yeah.
And in the 1850s, there was a disproportionately high number of lynchings in LA.
Oh gosh.
Which was attached to popular justice, which is when the crowd feels like,
Yeah,
you know what, they
something
did
bad,
it wrong.
yeah.
And it's like, there's no TV, there's no other forms of
Yeah.
entertainment, they're not reading, they're just lynching people for fun.
Okay, yes. For so I mean,
yeah.
nowadays I would still even make this statement now. We as a civilization since the beginning of time have gotten a lot of enjoyment out of watching other people die,
Yeah.
get hurt, get injured,
We watch movies,
get maimed.
TV
Now we
shows.
do it and like we watch people get blown up, but like it's fake and it's all CGI.
Yeah.
Back in the day, they used to have arenas where watch people fight. That was their entertainment. So
Yes.
no, it's not like. Yes, it's like shocking that they would have these public lynchings and that's what people were doing for fun. But it's also just like that's just what humans used to do for fun.
This was like still going on in like 1950s.
Yeah,
where you
like
take children
this is
to watch
yeah.
this stuff. So
I mean,
it's not.
in other parts of the world, they still do that now.
Oh yeah, they still do that now. But
we just look at it like it's uncivilized to do that.
But even in the States,
But-
it was in the last 100 years for
Can you
sure.
imagine what the world would look like in 1,000 years from now? Sometimes it makes me sad that I won't ever see like the evolution of our own species.
Yeah, unless you believe in ghosts.
I mean, unless I come back as a, in a future
Yeah, if you're
life.
Buddhist,
I mean, I
yeah,
do actually
if you
believe in
believe in
past
future-
lives,
past and future life
and
thing.
souls and stuff like
Yeah.
that. I like to believe in that because it gives me a sense of hope. But
That's you
it's,
know what
it's probably
a lot of
not.
people use religion for a sense of hope as
Yep.
well, which is very valid. So in 1871, there had been a confrontation from a feud between two Chinese Tong factions, which are like mob groups or whatever,
Yeah.
known as the Hong Chau and Ninyang companies. And this happens in 1971. So I'm finally getting to my actual
You know what
Stuff.
is like? Wait, 1971?
1871.
Oh, sorry. So all of my like Wild West imagery is from like Wild West movies.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to picture like right now I'm trying to picture like Chinese Wild
They never
West.
had them in movies.
And I'm thinking like I bet you the Chinese Wild West really wasn't like the same kind of like cowboys and like pew pew like
I think it might
I'm
have
making
been.
finger guns to the people that are just listening to this podcast. I just made finger guns at Angela.
I think it was because from like I'm gonna say like what happened, and it sounds like it was. I mean, they do come from different cultures and everything,
Yeah.
but killing's killing.
Yeah. I'm just like I'm picturing a whole bunch of like Chinese men on horses galloping in with like cowboy hat. Like it's so ridiculous in my
Yeah.
head where it's like this just doesn't seem right. So
But,
it's
you
like
know,
what
for
would
sure,
it actually
yeah.
look like?
But it probably exactly is
A lot of
was like
beige.
that. Even
Just
it's probably a lot of dirt
so
colors,
much dirt color,
maybe a little bit
beige,
blue,
maybe.
like denim.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Did they even have denim in the 1800s?
I want to say yes, but I actually have no idea.
Who knows? Okay, tell me.
So-
Getting back to the story. So there's two factions.
The feud was over the alleged abduction of a Chinese woman named Yu To.
It's always got to be about a woman.
Yep. She was
Helena
a striking
Troy.
moon-faced beauty.
Ooh.
Yu was properly married woman
Oh.
who belonged to a Chinese company led by Sam Yoon.
Oh.
And I think like what it was is like she was either married before or after she got there, but I think she was still sold for sex within the groups because there's not that
Okay.
many women.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I don't imagine like you just
I
unless
don't
she's
understand like women like I don't understand dynamics back in the day either.
I just assume
'cause
like
it's
all
just,
women
like,
are property like,
yeah.
back in the day, which is
And
a
she was
shitty
owned
thing to
by
think.
the company.
Yeah,
like
she
ooh.
belonged to it.
Okay,
Yeah, so that's why I think like she was definitely being sold for sex, but
Yeah.
then she might also have been
But she
property
was
married.
So she was married,
Is-
possibly to somebody
Either-
at the company.
Yeah, like or like maybe a higher,
higher,
ranking person.
yeah.
And so
Okay.
she was
Well, I mean, there's a big thing about it.
Well, they're fighting, but then there's so few women too, like who
Yeah.
are Chinese women. So it's like you have to fight for each.
What exactly is a moon? A moon face.
It's like a round face.
Okay.
Like the moon's round and bright.
okay. Oh, okay. Okay.
So
And she's probably super beautiful.
Determined to return Ute to her husband, Sam imported two hitmen, or not two. I'm sorry. He imported hitmen from San Francisco, one being a Choi, her brother.
Okay.
So one of the hitmen that he had from San Francisco was her brother. And because most of the women in Chinese community serve as prostitutes or sex workers or sex slaves or whatever the word is.
Yeah.
And they were sold to sex slavery. That's what it was. Like
Yeah.
they weren't getting paid. They were getting beaten. It was really bad.
Yeah.
So the police department.
We can all imagine, like,
It still happens now.
It still happens now.
really shitty.
And I have
Yeah.
this whole theory, and it's just okay.
So the police department had previously assisted the Tongs in keeping their confrontations over the women internal in the community, but this time it got out of hand, and that's when like every shit goes down. And like there's all these other articles I read about like more in-depth look about like, oh well, this person was doing this, but it was just too much.
Yeah.
So it's skipping all that. So
What does it have to do with her?
the two Chinese men were arrested for shooting at each other and were released on bail, but the police kept watch on the Chinatown neighborhood. This happened along the Cal de los Negros, named after the Spanish colonists from Californios of darker complexion.
Okay.
So that's why it's called Negros, because I think that means black in Spanish.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying the N-word in case it's very
It's-
confusing. That's
No,
confusing
no,
to
it's just like
people.
in other language, it's the
Yes.
same. That's that word in another language.
Yeah. So by the time the first Chinatown developed there in 1960, it was basically a slum at that point. So in the early 20th century merchant Harris Newmark recalled it as a tough neighborhood. In fact, as could be found anywhere. Like it was one of the toughest neighborhoods you can find in the
Yeah.
States. Of the 44 homicides that occurred in LA in one 15-month period, which is a lot for probably how small the population size was.
Yeah, I was just thinking like 44 is a lot.
Yeah.
In a year for back then.
The highest murder rate ever recorded in the U.S., a good portion took place in this one alley.
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn. Put some lights in that alley, man. Why don't you move your police station next to that
You
alley?
don't care about this.
Yeah, I guess you
you don't
really-
care.
yeah, I
you don't
guess
care about
that's
those
true.
kinds of people.
But still, I
It's
mean,
still like that
if you've got
now.
one alley that has like 99% of your murders, why don't you do something
It
with
sounded
that
like it was
alley?
a compound too. It was very compacted in.
Yeah.
And then like you see that sometimes on TV shows. Like I watch SWAT, and they're like, you can't go into that neighborhood. It's like a compound. Like you go in there, you're gonna die. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure it still happens in some areas.
That
It's
is so scary.
dangerous.
I've never experienced that. I've never like been in a situation where like if you take the wrong turn, you're gonna end up in the wrong part of town. Like I've never, like that is so. That's
I had a
scary
friend
to me.
she was my bridesmaid, but I had a friend who, like, her little brother was parked in a car waiting for someone and then got shot in a drive-by shooting, and he was 2 blocks away from his house.
That
And I was just like, when I found out, I was like,
horrifies
what
me.
happened? And then I'm like, that's only like 2 miles away from my dad's house too. So it's just one of those like really
they'll
shitty.
never just like. No wonder agoraphobia exists. Like
Yeah.
I would never want to
Leave the
sometimes, like listen. I know people want to shit all over some people for having all these like delivered to your house kind of things, but like I would love to have everything delivered to my house so I would never have to leave my house and worry about getting shot or getting into a car accident or dying in any sort of way that wasn't in my own home.
So-
Anyways, sorry.
Day of the murders. So on October 24th, 1871,
Okay.
LA police officer Jesus Bilderain
Confidence. There we go.
Yeah. was patrolling Cal de los Negros, and Jesus arrived to find a Choi lying on the ground, because I wrote group for some reason, with blood spurting from a gunshot wound in his neck.
Okay, so this must have been a recent thing if blood's
Yes.
still spewing out.
Spotting a group of fleeing men, Jesus chased them into a large L-shaped adobe. Yeah. The Coronel building. There's so many like names and words that we don't use
No,
anymore.
I understand.
So a crowded warren of shops and tiny apartments that house the core of the Chinese community, which is why I think it was kind of like a compound-ish situation is what it sounded like. So the first version Jesus told, which he revised several times in the months that followed, which, are never good.
Jesus, God, you got to get one story and just like...
He's no Jesus.
He's no Jesus. He can't keep his shit straight. Oh, man.
He said he courageously dashed into the building and was immediately shot. He came out minus his gun with a bullet in his shoulder, and he blew his whistle for reinforcements. Some civilians came to his aid, and Robert Thompson, the proprietor of one of the town's most notorious saloons, the Blue Wing, and notorious always means like, all the criminals go there.
Yeah.
Pursued a Chinese man up a door of a house in the alley. Robert was not a cop.
Damn.
But an LA citizen at the time. But like LA citizens at the time were used to taking law into their own hands. Obviously,
yeah, you have vigilantes all the time. It's the 1800s.
Yeah,
the term cop and sheriff and all of this it's very
new.
Loose.
Yeah, especially
it's loose
here.
And it's new. It's definitely getting
very loose.
Very loose and new here, because I remember reading. So never mind.
So 35 people were lynched by vigilante committees in LA in the previous 2 decades, which is a lot of fucking people, because that's not cops. That's just random people.
Yeah.
Like, yup. And that.
Citizen justice.
Yep. So many told him not to go in, that the Chinese were armed, but he didn't listen. Sticking his weapon inside the door, he fired blindly into the darkened interior.
Why? Because it's the 1800s and they just don't give a shit.
You have to think like they just don't care about life back then.
No.
You just poop out another kid or whatever. Because like you had
just
children.
Poop out another kid or something.
Isn't it like you had children to work on your farms and stuff? So you just had as many.
Yeah, you have your heir and then your spare.
And like those times you didn't know which child would survive.
Yeah.
It's not like now where you kind of plan a lot more.
No, women and babies were dying in childbirth like all of the time.
They didn't care about
dying
children were,
from colds because we didn't have medicine and bacteria was rampant. We also didn't know what soap was, so we weren't washing ourselves properly.
Just eating poop
and everything
all the time.
smelled so bad.
So I feel like it's an accurate description of what was going on in this day and age.
Yeah.
Even someone's gonna get offended. Anyways, he then pulled.
They don't get to be offended. It was the 1800s. You don't. Your 2019-ness doesn't get to be offended by shit that was going on 200 years ago.
He then pulled open the door to go inside, and he was fatally shot there, dying about an hour later at 6 p.m. at a nearby drugstore.
I thought he had a version of events.
No, that's Jesus. This is Robert.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I was like, how did he die?
Jesus survives, obviously.
He's obviously Jesus then, because he came back 3 days later.
3 days later. They just had to put the rock in,
He came back 3 days later to tell his version of the events. Okay, well, I'm really sorry that Robert died. Although I don't know why he was shooting his gun off into a fucking...
There's a lot of, I have
oh my God, I'm like,
conspiracy theories
think that he was like
afterwards.
did he kill a kid? Did he shoot the wrong people? Oh my God, that would be so heartbreaking.
Do
I care? Do I care about Robert?
There was a lot of speculation on his part too, because he did own like a saloon that was kind of a shifty saloon. So he's not. He's not.
Mean, it's the 1800s. Nobody's clean.
No one's
We're all
clean.
shady people.
Yeah.
To current times. Back then, they were probably the good people.
Who knows? I don't know. But lawmen, including Chief of Police Francis Baker, came and went. Basically, we're just like, what's going on? Larger crowds started to gather along the edges of Chinatown, acting as a guard to prevent any Chinese people from escaping. Because it's kind of like, how dare you kill one of our own?
Yeah.
Even though they probably killed... It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
how dare you kill one of our own?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many we're killing of each other. You're not allowed to come in here and kill us. You.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're going to catch you.
Because you're not from... You're already alien to begin with.
Yeah,
so
because you're not from here. You're not amongst us.
And like...
We were very like... I mean, we still are...
But it was
very like border, like this is ours and you stay in yours and this is mine. And don't come in mine.
You're just not scared anymore. Back then, with someone holding a camera and then worrying about what other people are going to think of you. Because the rest of the world, after they hear about everything that happens, was very upset about what was going on there. So this wasn't normal either for this time. So 3-term mayor Cristobal Aguilar surveyed the situation and also left. So everyone just kind of sees it and is just like, well,
Okay,
Wes.
just some people shooting people. No big deal. Just another Friday.
As news of Robert's death and rumors that the Chinese in Negro Alley were killing white wholesale, basically just killing white people,
Yeah.
more men gathered around the boundaries, which is, this is going to be real bad right now. And it
Okay.
is. A mob estimated of 500 people,
Jesus fucking Christ.
nearly a tenth of the entire population of LA,
Wow.
gathered looking for a fight.
Damn. Yeah. Yeah. Because,
How
I mean, what else are you going to do this afternoon?
lynchings are really in right now.
Like, just get out there and fight.
So
All that testosterone.
The mob hatched a
heat.
new plan. Climbing onto the roof, they used axes to hack holes
Jesus.
in the tar covering.
Oh my gosh. Now they have weapons?
Yeah, they have
Oh.
everything. They're a mob. They got
Wow.
it. Then they sprayed a shotgun and rifle fire into the rooms below after they hacked holes into the tars on top of the buildings.
Oh my God. Okay.
The mob,
Who's in the building?
the Chinese people.
Yeah. Okay.
One of them killed Roberts.
Yeah.
So they don't
Yeah.
know who. They're just going to kill as many people as
yeah.
possible.
Oh my gosh.
By the time the mob had battered open a second door with a large rock, the Chinese had all but given up. What came next was an orgy of violence shocked even by the decadent standards of the city of Los Angeles, which I did not write. I stole
Yeah, that is
from
clearly a copy paste.
Yeah.
That's not Angela.
Just the way
Decadent.
that it was written was
The
beautifully,
decadent lifestyle
it was,
of
it was
Los
beautifully
Angeles.
written, so I'm just going to go with
Yeah,
it.
why
But I
not?
definitely didn't write that. So armed
Poetic.
men dragged Chinese men to the gallows hastily erected downtown. Like
Mm-hmm.
the downtown area, they put up a whole bunch of gallows so they were ready to start hanging as many people as possible. And that area wouldn't even be enough because they'd be hanging more people than they planned for. Bodies soon were swinging from 2 upturned wagons on Commercial Street. The men also used the porch roof of John Goler's wagon shop, a block south of the entrance of the alley. John's described as like super Christian, good man, blah, 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 blah. And he objected not because of them lynching these people, but because he said there are small children inside.
Well, I mean, yeah.
So that's why
in states like that, but like in circumstances of that, I do feel like a lot of people start thinking the children, like think of the children.
children.
Think of the children.
it's not
Won't someone
don't think of other
children?
people you're hanging and killing.
Yeah.
Think of the children
Yeah.
who might. I'm like, but scarred from what? They've definitely seen enough dead bodies in their
Yeah,
lives.
but I mean, like, they're the future. That dude's already dead. He's being lynched. They only care about the future.
But I think
don't know.
John was-
because
John was the standard of a good man back in the day because
Yeah.
he cared about the children.
Yeah.
So I mean, that standard was basically that was the standard.
At least he cared about something.
Yes. As the Chinese were hauled up, a man on the porch roof danced in a jig and gave voice
Oh my
voice
God.
to the resentment many Americans felt over the Chinese's willingness to work for low wages. He said, he sang out, "Come on, boys, patronize home trade." This sounded so much like what's going on now that it's actually terrifying. And
Well, it's
that's-
just no. We just keep repeating ourselves. The only difference is that now we actually have history. We actually have textbooks and written history that shows us, yes, we've done this before.
and we probably shouldn't do it. And then,
But then some people read that and think like, oh,
That's a
you know
great
what?
idea.
That's a really great idea. This is where they went wrong. This is where I'm going to go right. So they do it again. But no, it doesn't work out. And people still die.
but they don't care.
No,
'cause
they don't care because
don't
they
care.
think they're right.
Yeah. So a woman who ran a boarding house
Fuck
across
that
the
good
street
dancer.
volunteered clotheslines to be cut up for nooses.
No.
No one's gonna help these people. Like no one's gonna help the Chinese people because they already don't like them. They're
Yeah.
alien group. They're taking our jobs. Like you hear all of this
Yeah.
now.
No,
it's the same
yes,
thing,
it's
but
the
they're
same
way more
thing.
violent about it, and we didn't have public shame in the same way because
Yeah.
there's no one around to shame them.
Well, because now it's on a global scale.
Yes.
Like before, I mean, now, like before it was always there. But it was like contained to that one area, so you thought it was only in that one area, but now it's on a global scale, and we're realizing like, no, it's everywhere, it's all the time, and it's disgusting.
And it's crazy because this was less than, or not less than, this was a little over 100 years ago, and like look at where LA is now, and it's just like, oh, this was like, and LA is not super safe or anything, but like way safer than this.
Yeah.
So but yeah, she came out and basically screamed out, hang them. So she was in on it too.
We're trash. People like
one of the victims in this lynch mob was Dr. Jean Tong, the most like he was like the most beloved person in the whole community.
Yeah.
And it was because he could have made more money as a doctor anywhere else in America, but he stayed there to help his community out.
Good. Well, they're all really great people. Like these Chinese people.
And
like,
there's probably like a couple of them like questionable, but
yeah,
for the most part, no one
like,
deserves any of the things that happens.
No. I mean,
so he was like the one that everyone was like, that Chinese guy's the good, you know, like they always say like that one person from that race, he's good though. You know, he was that guy.
Yeah.
Really
I mean, yeah, no, but it's just like, that's what 100% what they do.
Mm-hmm. But he doesn't escape this because, of course, as Jean was being dragged out, he tried to bargain with them. He said he had $3,000 in gold in the shop, which is a ton of fucking money.
Yeah, especially back. Yeah,
and a diamond wedding ring. They could have it all. Just he wants to live. Instead of negotiating, one of his captors shot him in the mouth to silence him.
Oh my god!
They hanged him, first cutting off his finger to steal a ring. Yeah. So.
And I bet you then they went over to a shop
and stole everything.
All the gold.
The next morning, the citizens of LA filed past the town's jail building to view the bodies of the dead laid out in double rows. They were proud of it.
That's disgusting.
They didn't see anything wrong with what they did.
Yeah.
There was 17, and it was the largest mass lynching in American history. Because there's been lynchings before, but not in this scale.
Yeah.
The victims were Ah Wing, Dr. Chi Long Jean Tong, Ching Wan, Leon Kwai, Ah Long, Wan Fu, Tong Wan, Ah Lu, Dae Ki, Awa, Ho Hing, Lo Hei, Awan, Wing Chi, and Wang Chin. And most of them were cooks. They weren't even like the people who were in charge of the factions were not. No.
They were just people inside
workers.
that building.
Yep. 3 more were shot and killed at the Coronel Ado building. Johnny Burrow, Ah Cut, and Washing Kwai. I don't know Johnny Burrow because he seemed like the only one who wasn't Chinese, but those were the ones who weren't hung up. So that's why it wasn't considered in the lynching. As news of the massacre spread, the reaction from the rest of the country was universal horror because even in that time, this was what the fuck are you guys doing?
Yeah, you can't just lynch that many people for no reason.
Literally, it's such an overreaction.
It is.
First of all, and then it wasn't okay. So the citizens from the East asked what sort of ghouls had taken residence in the West Coast. They're just like, what kind of crazy killer fucking,
what the fuck's going on down there? Like that's basically what they're doing. Like
the Methodist conference.
That's why they called it the Wild West, I guess.
But Methodist conference started raising funds for missionary work in LA because you know what? They might need Jesus. And you know what? I don't disagree with them. They need something to tell them that they should not do. They needed something.
It's the 1800s. Everything is, let's give it Jesus and pray.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 2019 and there's still parts of the world that are like, let's give it Jesus and pray. Mm-hmm. Let's just pray. Our thoughts and prayers are with you. Doesn't do anything.
But thanks.
Thanks.
Frontier apologists blamed a massacre on the dregs of California society, an assortment of thugs and highwaymen who slouched into town every fall for their mines in the north and lawless Mexican territory to the south. Basically, they were like, it's not the people who live here; it's the people from other places.
It's the people from around here that come here.
It doesn't reflect the population of LA, even though we had the largest lynchings and killings here. It's not here though. It's not us. It's yeah. You've heard this before too.
It's not us. It's them. It's them coming here and ruining our beautiful city. It's just like, or maybe everywhere's just trash.
Poet and historian A.J. Wilson said, American hoodlum and a Mexican greaser, Irish tramp, and French communist all joined to murder and dispatch the foe. Like they were just like, it's everyone else. It wasn't us.
Yeah.
And it's just like, take some responsibility for your actions.
Take responsibility. No. Angela. No way.
That's not what this country was built on.
This country, America most definitely was not built on taking responsibility for their actions.
No. So the truth was, while the looting and murder was carried out mostly by the hoodlums, the cover-up that would follow would only be attained by the town's elite. Because no one's going to get jail time for any of this.
Of course not.
Sam Yoon and Yo Hing,
the people that are going to get the jail time were lynched.
Yeah.
If there was going to be any jail time.
Sam Yoon and Yo Hing, who are the ones who are in charge of both factions, and for the Chinese mobs and stuff, they both survived the lynching and would blame each other for the outbreak, being like, he killed Roberts. No, he killed Robert.
Yeah,
you know?
Of course they did.
It was a public relations disaster for a town that was desperate to attract a rail link, because as soon as you get rails there, then they knew that the population would grow and then the city would. And they do eventually, obviously, get it.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah. Because it's Los Angeles. They obviously do well for themselves.
They wanted to bring thousands of Anglos to Southern California to sweep away what was left of the Spanish California culture. They were just like, we want to get rid of all the people that aren't European. Yeah.
I think I know the story from when that happens. Yeah. When they come down and
Just funny because it's.
I think there was an episode of Drunk History on that.
I'm really happy that Hispanic population has thrived so hard in LA with everything that they're very resilient.
I'm really impressed with any culture that has been able to remain resilient because sometimes I hear stories and it's just how, why? First of all, why? But then also how, that's so sad.
It's always money. And this will also come out of money too.
Of course it does. That $3,000.
But
probably
it was
a lot
also, but I mean, it's a lot of money. $3,000.
No, it is. And it's the free labor too. It's it's the whole, they're taking our jobs and it's just no.
So the city's fathers downplayed the massacre as a spontaneous outbreak of rage against the hated minority.
Of course they did.
Which, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Authorities arrested and prosecuted 10 rioters. 8 were convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to prison terms, but they were overturned.
Oh,
yeah.
Damn, I was about to get excited. No. But no.
Esteban Alvarado, Charles Austin, Refugio Botello, L.F. Crenshaw, A.R. Johnson, Jesus Martinez, Patrick M. McDonald, and Louis Mendel. And they were all going to be overturned in appeals court due to legal technicalities because why wouldn't they be?
Because, the other people aren't there to defend themselves.
So at this point in time in history, there were many popular books suggesting that the Chinese streamed into California by the thousands to search for gold.
Why not?
Because the gold rush. California gold rush.
Exactly. People were coming in from all over.
But this was to cause fear because they would be the Chinese people are going to stream in to California by the thousands searching for gold and eventually take over California. And then they're going to elect a silk-clad Mandarin as governor. That was their, you don't want this. If you allow this, then they're going to take over and they're going to, whatever. So
and then they're going to come in with their plan.
They're going to force everyone to learn how to eat with chopsticks and... and
then our culture's gonna fall by the wayside.
And
blah,
that's
blah,
exactly what a lot of popular books back then said about
it's what everybody does about everything, right?
Yeah.
When I was growing up, and this is totally off topic, but when I was growing up, my grandmother on my dad's side used to preach all the fucking time about the gay agenda and how gays were getting into power and they were gonna take down the government and all this sort of stuff. So all the shit that you're talking about, when I was growing up, I heard all of that about gays. And I remember sitting there thinking gays don't have an agenda. Like,
no,
it's-
their only agenda is to be treated like normal
Like-
people and for them to live a normal
exactly
fucking life.
Like, they're just people, and
Yeah.
these Chinese people, they're just people.
But I mean, you couldn't
We're all
have
just
gone
people.
through all those wars thinking that anyone's just people, right?
No,
like you have to
it's
think that they're
just-
savages. It's like that Black Mirror episode.
I never watched Black Mirror,
Oh,
but no,
I don't wanna say it.
no, it really is. It is. It's just one of those things where like they've always
it's
had
easier,
this
easier to
viewpoint.
demonize someone and
Yeah.
then so that you can kill
Because
them
it's
and destroy
different.
them in the future.
Because they're, because that's not me, and that, like, it's.
So the Chinese were already the objects of both fear and revulsion in LA.
It's
Fear
so sad.
because they were seen as almost superhuman in their ability to work long hours for pittance, and that's because they
because
had
they
to.
grew up in fucking China
and they grew
and,
up
like,
with this
different.
with this like mindset of like you just have to keep working. But
Yeah.
as you start hiring more people to do your work for you, you become lazier. That's how it is, and that's the reason why you just
That's why
think they
white
work.
people are so fucking lazy.
It's one of those things where it's like you just didn't grow up with the same set
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
like, work values.
We're talking about immigrants that came over. So it's not a situation where this is like second or third generation
Yeah.
Americans like what we have now. This is like people that grew up in China, was raised in China under China law and like social stuff from the 1800s.
So they had to work
Like,
their ass
yeah.
off there. So they're used to it.
They're
That's what
coming
they had to
here
do.
to work their asses off for better.
yeah.
Like, they're probably looking at, them working in America as the vacation, because instead of working like at 177%, they only have to work at 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Like, so maybe, yeah, it really is like, it's pure laziness.
Yeah. But then they're also having revulsion for their religion and culture because it's not the same.
'Cause
as
it's
them.
different.
And they just keep using the word they were alien because
Yeah, because that's
basically.
because I don't think back then they had other words to use.
No. So after that massacre in 1871, the U.S. would pass the Chinese Exclusion Act on May 6, 1882, prohibiting all immigrants of Chinese laborers. That's all they learned from that. That's all they learned.
So the answer to the whole thing is to just
If you
ban-
don't have them here, then you can't kill them.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow. That sounds very American.
Yes, but I heard that was very similar too. Like someone had told me that the Chinese history here is also not very good. I don't know what it is, but
I don't know.
it's not very good here either. Apparently,
Canada?
yeah, that's the reason why they're all in Vancouver. There's like a reason for that, but I don't know what it is, so I don't want to like say a lot of things about it because I'm not sure. But
Yeah.
I like someone had mentioned to me that like they were poorly treated all up and down any European country because they're alien. That's what it is. They're alien.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
historically speaking, white people don't like anything that's not white. Like if
So-
you don't look like me, you're dangerous. That's like
I wonder though.
that's the
if it's-
mentality. I think that's like a species thing. Like if you think about it, like animals do the same thing, but they don't
yeah.
they don't know what they look
I think
like.
it is a
but-
biological thing to not trust something that you're comfortable with or you're used to. So when you're only used to seeing one type
Yeah.
of person, then like when you see another one, you're like, holy, that's
Yeah, it's like it's scary,
danger.
right? It's
Yeah.
danger, and unfortunately, we have humanity where it has evolved to like attack and kill things with guns. But it's just like, yeah, it's. I understand it way back when, like the initial fear of like seeing people, but nowadays it's just like you fucking know better.
I do
There
think
is nothing different.
We've come a long way in that like the larger population is pretty
we're
like,
we're learning.
Yeah,
We're trying to, but
you're
we're not
trying.
we're not there yet. But I do understand like I do
Yeah.
understand why.
I also understand like where they're coming from because I'm like thinking of like back then. I'm
Yes,
like, this
back
is normal
then.
for them back then.
I
Yeah.
don't agree with it at any point now because
Yeah.
it's just like it's fucking back then.
But
like,
I wonder
it's been
if
200
I'd
years.
be okay
Get over
with it if I was born in that time and like that's what I was taught. Then
Yeah, the only reason
maybe.
why we don't agree with racism now is essentially because we've been taught
that it's not okay.
that it's not
now.
okay.
Yeah.
And also because it's just like because there is nothing different between any of us.
The sad part is that they didn't actually repeal that act until 1943.
Okay, so they instituted it in
In 1882.
So 1882.
And they didn't repeal it till 1943. So over 50 years.
Wow.
It's very recent.
And that is when America was like
trying to be a little bit.
Is this where you were getting into your conspiracy thing?
No, it's a different story.
Okay.
So but then that was called the Magnuson Act, and it allowed 105 Chinese people per year.
Jesus Christ.
And that wasn't even that act wasn't officially abolished until the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965. So the idea of, I think, like, it's weird because I'm like, you know, like, you came into this country and you stole the land, and then you decided it's yours, and then now you're like, oh, you can't come here anymore?
You came in here.
Understand, like,
you came in here and you stole the land. Then you went over to another country and stole those people to bring them to this land to cultivate it for you. And then you were like, no one else is allowed in this land.
Yeah, and like it's so
That's
crazy.
so gross.
Like, history's so crazy, but I mean at the same time we are all living in a time where all this already happened, and we are living in a time where we're
living in it now
Yeah.
versus reading it as a sentence.
Yes.
And I am super aware of that.
And we're how fortunate we are that, like, you know, the country grew, and you know, we are more accepting now.
Yeah, we're all evolving. It's like, yeah, we all wish that we could be better, and maybe in 1,000 years we will be. But if anything shows, we probably won't, because the baseline of like human behavior, if you look at like 500 years ago to now, is very much still the same. You have people in power, you have people who are super poor, you have people killing people, you've got people in wars,
The only thing is that, like, now everyone has knowledge in comparison to before.
Yeah, now we
where
have
you had
knowledge. Now we know
people who were poor before there was no way for them to ever crawl up those rankings. Now there is a way for people to come from nothing to actually, you know,
and
do
people
something.
that lived like, you know, people who lived in London would only ever know people that lived on the street that they grew up on, versus like now, you know, I can
everywhere.
it doesn't matter where they live as long as they have the internet connection.
Yeah.
Like,
and now that's almost everywhere.
You can meet people from all over the world, and you can have we have so much more knowledge now than we did back then, but like, even with all that knowledge, we haven't improved.
We've improved. It's just not
Like,
I think the problem also is sometimes that in the news, all we see is bad things too.
It is.
And it's really depressing. And a lot of terrible things obviously happen.
so much, because there's so much of
But
us.
I wonder if there's so many terrible things that happened back then that the only ones that were ever recorded were when they were like large. Like maybe there was a lynching every day, but
there's not recording of everything.
Yeah.
From every culture, from every whatever. Like, that's sort of, I mean, think of all the oral histories that happen, especially with indigenous families and stuff like that, like cultures that got passed down through oral histories that are now gone because
even with this event, I had never heard of it.
No,
it was very recently written about by
I'm
the
like
Los
so
Angeles
shocked.
Times.
Like, I've never heard of this, and when I was originally thinking, I was just like, holy crap, like, not to take away from African Americans or their plight, but it's just like, wow, they weren't the only ones we were super racist against.
Oh yeah, no.
We banned them from the country.
And I only knew
but
about
it's not
the
me at
whole
all.
like Chinese railroad system thing because we talked about it very briefly in history.
Didn't know
the
anything.
main target for slavery were African Americans or anyone who lived in, like, I guess the Caribbean and stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
But like after like slavery was, you know, abolished, well, you know, quote abolished.
Yeah. More like just.
Then they had to find other laborers for cheaper, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why they went to the East and fucking, of course.
Yeah.
So the press spoke infrequently about the massacre because, you know, it's true. If you don't talk about it, everyone forgets.
Yeah, and and it is. If it's not recorded, who's gonna remember?
Mm-hmm.
Who's gonna know?
And local papers failing to publish anything about the events during the year roundup of major events that happened in 1871. It wasn't even in the radar to mention this fucking 17 people lynching because they were trying to hide it. They don't
Yeah.
want this to be part of their history.
I think about how many other situations of this that have happened over like years.
Yeah.
That like where it's just like nobody talks about it, or it gets like cut out of history books.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you with that woman, I bet you if that wasn't as recent, we would never have known about that lady because she was like completely cut out.
Oh, and yeah. But then we would have never talked about her because she's not important to any sort of like Americanized history either.
It's
And
the
even
victor gets to rewrite history, or it's like we know what other people have decided. Yeah, you know what? This is important enough to write down. Oh, but we're gonna change this fact, and this fact. They'll never know. How are they gonna be able to fact check?
and I think
This is them fact checking.
that is one
Like,
of the beauties I think of the internet. Everything is recorded. Everything
Yeah.
is always there.
But now we live in a world where everything is faked.
I know.
So I sometimes I also think about how are they going to be able to look back now?
We
I
don't all
understand,
want to
yeah.
be like North Korea where we start making up events and then force people
Yeah.
to learn them and
Yeah.
you know.
It's just
So
yeah.
the alley was incorporated into Los Angeles Street in 1877. 6 years later, it was incorporated.
okay.
The adobe apartment block where the Chinese Massacre occurred was torn down in the late 1880s and is now a part of the El Pueblo de Los Angeles historical monument, which is a national historical district. There's like a whole bunch of
Okay.
like little pop-up shops there
Okay,
now too.
because I was gonna ask
It's still there. Oh,
if they have like a statue or
They have a plaque.
memorial or a plaque or
it
anything.
was. I'd never heard of this plaque before. I had never even heard of this until the LA Times wrote about it.
Mm-hmm.
So they get obviously a ton of like. I
Good
got
job,
most of
El.
my material from
job.
them because they did the most amount of work on it.
Yeah.
And I think I also read a couple of things like Next Shark, which is like a news site for mostly just all Asian news.
Mm-hmm.
But they were also wrote the article after the LA Times article. So this is like pretty buried.
Yeah.
event.
Well, it sounds like they wanted to keep it buried. They're not really proud of it.
There was a plaque that gives you a brief history of what took place there, and that's basically it.
Okay. Well, these are something.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
And
good.
then in 2017, there was a Chinese movie set during the event called the Jade Pendant. And that's the Chinese Massacre of 1871.
Wow, man, that was crazy.
That was one of the
Thank
kind of
you.
the stories that like I felt like you would have done if you had, because like it's an older story.
Yeah,
and
and
so
it's-
much history based.
there's like so much that I didn't know.
Yeah.
Like
But I mean, I only get
and
these.
wouldn't know. Like
No, I only get these notifications because first of all, I read like almost every. I'm subscribed to like everything that's Asian, and then secondly, it's because I'm from LA, so of course
Yeah.
everyone in LA read that article because it's in LA Times. So
Yeah.
if you're not from the area, you're not going to know about it. It's how it
Yeah.
is.
I mean,
Most murders, I'm pretty sure, like tons of people in Canada don't know who Elizabeth Wettlaufer is.
I have never heard that name.
Elizabeth Wettlaufer, isn't she the nurse? Am I getting her name wrong?
I don't know names.
Oh,
Like that.
she's that nurse that was killing all those people in London, Woodstock.
Woodstock.
You know,
Maybe.
the nurse who I think you were gonna do it. She's
Yeah.
yeah,
She was killing babies.
she was killing old people.
Okay, no, I was doing
Was it babies?
I was gonna do
It was like
a
it
baby
was-
killing one, but then I was like, no one likes dead
It
babies.
was last year. So she got caught last year. 2 years ago.
I'm not 100% like
But yeah,
names and
She's technically, I think, the most prolific female Canadian serial killer now, because she was like a angel of death type. And she would-
possibly because the one that I was thinking of was a nurse, but she was killing babies back in like the late 1800s, early 1900s.
Yeah, I was surprised that like more people, like Elizabeth Wettlaufer's from London,
Mm-hmm.
and I think she didn't, or she was either worked in London and then I think she lived in Woodstock.
Yeah.
but that was like 2 years ago when she got caught.
Wow.
Yeah, I think I heard her
I
name.
think okay, because I'm getting like a visual of like her.
She
in
was, like-
court.
Yeah,
But the name isn't. I'm really bad with names.
I am
though.
too. I only remember hers because I recently heard it.
Yeah.
So you know, I sound really like I'm knowledgeable, but
Yeah.
no.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for this story. I really
problem.
liked it.
Let's hear
mine,
yours.
mine is so nothing like yours. And I apologize. I tried I tried writing this in a different method so that maybe I could, because before I was writing out these long paragraphs, this time I put it in point form. So we're gonna give this a go, see how we do. All right, so on January 7th, 2018, Barbara Coombes, a 63-year-old mother of one, walks into a Stockport police station and tells police officers that she murdered her father 12 years ago. 2 days later, police discover the body of Kenneth Coombes, a World War II veteran who would have been 87 years old at the time of his death and currently would have been 99.
If he had survived that long.
Yeah, if he was in 2018.
Yeah.
So, one day in January 2006, while Barbara was cleaning up, she found a box of stuff on a table, and she decided that she was like of her father's things. Sorry, she found a box of her father's things on a table, and she decided to open it up. And inside were a bunch of pornographic photos of herself and another child. And she apparently just snapped. She said that she was consumed with fear, thinking that she wasn't her father's only victim, and that a black cloud appeared over her. And so she, earlier, for the last couple of weeks or whatever, her father had been asking her to build a garden. And so that's, she had been working on that. So she had gone outside, picked up a spade that she had been using in the garden earlier that day, walked into the living room, and hit her father on the back of the head. He fell to the floor, at which point she hit him again. And when he asked her, he rolled over and was like, "What are you doing?" Fearing that he would attack her or kill her after she just attacked him.
Yeah.
She stabbed him in the throat with the spade. And killed him. Then as the body was bleeding out, she wrapped him up in an old carpet, dragged it out to the garden, and hid him behind a tree.
That adrenaline was fucking rushing right through her body.
Yeah, she was she would have been 51 years old at the time.
Yeah.
She
dead weight.
Went for it.
Yeah, she's...
The following day, she bought 2,000 pounds of soil. Then she dug up the garden, buried him in the garden, and filled it in with the soil, a bunch of pretty flowers, and circled it all neatly with bricks, which it was noted that she didn't use bricks anywhere else in the backyard. So it was just this one area she filled in with bricks. People suspected that was her, he's buried.
Special
I take
area.
This is
yeah.
Then she basically just continued on with her life for the next 12 years.
I'm surprised that she even, she must have just felt so guilty for her to go in.
For her to
go into the police office.
Well, I don't know if she felt that guilty. So she kept receiving his pension and his benefits on his behalf. She forged his name whenever she could, which, I mean, he's an old dude. He was 87 years old. She was probably the person that was
already doing it to begin with. Yeah.
So she was just doing all this stuff. She was rescheduling and canceling appointments with his dentists and doctors. And in total, she received over 190,000 euro, which was 21,000 US or 29,000 Canadian, in over the 12 years, which is a lot of money. That's an insane amount of money. She told her family that he had died from a cardiac arrest or blood poisoning, and that the hospital had cremated him, claiming that he wouldn't have wanted much of a fuss for a funeral, and dad just wanted, he wouldn't have wanted a funeral. So the family, however, they try to get a death certificate several years later, but she's like, I lost it. And then apparently they also asked her if she had killed him, and she puts on this huge big act, how could you ever ask me? I was taking care of him. What an awful question. How could you ask me that?
That's how you know.
But the family was just okay, you know what, maybe not. The neighbors all assumed that he had just moved away and didn't mind that he was gone. They were he was super controlling. He didn't he wouldn't let her do anything. This was a 50. I'll get a little bit more into what she was doing. So yeah, they were just we assumed that he moved or died. Whatever. He's
old.
He was there one day and then he wasn't there the next day. And we just weren't close enough to ask hey, where's Ken?
You also don't want to ask in case he passed away, because it's a very touchy situation.
They weren't close. Yeah, they weren't close enough. The neighbors just weren't close enough to her. And like this one neighbor was like, she's such a lovely woman. I'm so shocked by this, which is like, so it's just so typical, right? Like everyone, there's always one person that says that. So eventually it starts getting harder and harder for Barbara to dodge these appointments, because like he's going to be almost 100 years. He's almost 100 years old.
They're going to be like, we need to see him.
We need to verify that he's like alive and well. And it's been 12 years since anyone's seen him. So so this housing association is like, we need to meet with him. The appointment is scheduled for January 8th. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like this, it's happening. That's final, or like we stop paying. Good day.
Yeah.
And like, that was it. Barbara gets really frightened because she knows she's about to get caught. So that's where we wrap around to the beginning of our story. And on January 7th, 2018, Barbara walks into a Stockport police station and tells police that 12 years prior, she killed her father.
Yes.
So when they interview her, she then claims that he sexually abused her for over 40 years and that she was used as a sex slave. She said that between the ages of 6 and 9, he would take her to a photography club where he would force her to display her genitals while other men took photographs of her. And like and she also had these photographs too. So he also took photographs of her.
Was any of this verified?
Well, they had the photos.
Oh.
But I mean, for the most part, none of this other stuff could really be verified.
Yeah, but like, if everything she says is true, then one of those things where it's like, well,
see, in the news, a lot of people were like very against her because they kept talking about how he was a veteran and what a World War II veteran and blah blah blah. Yeah,
you were drafted for that, first of all.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, but
and it's also like
for that.
It doesn't matter. There were
you can still be a shitty person, but a hero. Yeah, you can be.
Yeah. Yes, you most definitely can be. And just because he was in the war doesn't mean that he didn't rape his daughter.
Yeah.
So fuck you, media.
That's such a dumb fucking like thought process. Yeah. But like this was last year, so they should know better than that. It's one of those things where it's like, they should.
They were like, because it's just like, well, she's saying the media is basically like, well, there's no proof. Like,
I think like if
you killed your father and then buried him in the garden in the backyard and then slept for the next 12 years with they were talking about that in the article about how she slept with the window facing her dead her dead father.
Where her room was. Yeah. First of all,
and it's just like she slept there for
my
12
problem
years.
with it is the fact that she took the money. If she didn't do that, then 100% her. It's just the fact that she took the money, and it's like that's kind of the iffy area.
Okay, well, so he raped her countlessly all the way up to the time of her death.
He's probably a piece of shit.
He possibly fathered her first child, David, who died shortly after birth. She said that she had more than one child, but that she had had a son, but that it had died, and that her father had disposed of the body, and so that she didn't know where it was. He kept her extremely secluded. She had no friends, no hobbies. She had never worked a day in her life. She had only left the town that they had lived in a couple of times. She did get married and have a child at one point, because there is another daughter. But I couldn't really find any articles. I only found one article that said that she had been married. I did know that she had a daughter. I had actually assumed that the daughter was the father's.
Yeah.
Also, but there was an article that said she had been married and had a child with this other man, but she had only been out of the house for about 1 to 2 years.
Now it makes more sense as to why she needed the money from the pension.
Yeah, like that's what I mean. Like she was a 51-year-old woman that was completely living off of her father.
Yeah.
Because he had was super controlling and super sex slavey. So I couldn't find any more details on that. Apparently her father used to repeatedly beat Barbara's mother. And anytime she tried to intervene, she was told to be mind her own business, and then later she'd get raped. Her father said that he didn't believe that she was his daughter, so he would rape her. He said that he wished that she had been a boy, so he would rape her. Like, it was just basically like,
He should start making up excuses because that's what he was gonna do anyways.
yeah,
no matter
he was
what she
raping
did.
her and then blaming it on her.
So her fucking
yeah.
mental state
Yeah.
is
So-
off the charts, ruined.
So when they go and uncover the body from the home, and they're just like, oh yeah, no, there's actually a body back there. She gets arrested. She pleads guilty to manslaughter, but the Crown decides not to pursue a murder charge on the account of all the abuse that she had received.
And all that proof that
and-
those pictures were
yeah.
fucking whoever had to look at them.
Yeah.
Holy, like obviously
And it's just like,
oh
now,
my god.
here's the thing. And I think the reason why I told this story was because like I sort of understand, because like when I was growing up, I was molested, and I remember thinking like how I would feel if I was to find out that I wasn't the only one.
Yeah.
And so I understand like her being 51 years old, having this whole like shitty fucking life,
But
with
thinking
her-
like at least he's not doing this to anyone else.
At least it's just me. At least he's not hurting anybody else. And then finding boxes, like a box with photos of not just her that he had kept, which is just gross,
Awful.
but also like of another child.
That's-
So she was like, so it wasn't just me.
Yeah.
And so how do I know that now it's not just me? So it's just like, yeah,
That's so
she fucking
disgusting.
snapped and she went and killed him.
That's so
And-
crazy. And fuck
so,
the
yeah.
media for like how they represented her.
because he was
for,
a veteran. Is like, yeah, he was a veteran who raped his daughter for 50 years.
Like you can be a hero and a shitty person. That's
Yeah.
how it's always been like that.
Yeah,
You can be
And
both.
Just because, and I'm probably gonna get a lot of, you know what, I'm not even gonna say it because I'll probably get. No, I am gonna say it, regardless of the flack that I'm gonna get. Just because you were in the army doesn't make you a hero. Just means that you got drafted to the army. Like,
Some people, and
it's not to say that some people that there
There
aren't
are
a lot
tons
of
of peop-
there are a lot of
yeah.
people that are heroes. This guy isn't one, so I don't want to call him that. That's the only reason why.
That's really what it is. You're not discounting the
Yeah.
heroes. You're discounting the fact that just because you did one thing doesn't make you automatically a hero.
Yeah.
Because some people
Yeah.
just, it's not fair to the
Yeah.
ones who worked really hard
Yeah.
who deserve that
It's
title.
just such a counterbalance to your story from last week with Robert Chambers. Is
Yeah.
that who it was? Where like the girl had died, and so they like shit all over her and made her out to be the bad person.
Yeah.
This was a situation where this was a bad guy that she killed, and then the media was just like, "No, you're the bad person."
Yeah, because
Now-
it's already
and I
it's
can sort of-
elder abuse too.
Yeah.
It's one of those that's in their minds,
And it's because she kept it quiet for 12 years.
Yeah.
So while she did plead guilty to manslaughter, they didn't pursue a murder charge, but she did receive 9 years for fraud and preventing a
Yeah.
lawful burial, because they did have to give her something, but they weren't going to charge her for the murder.
No.
And the only reason why they pursued that is also because the judge didn't believe that she would have ever come forward if it wasn't for the fact that that worker at the housing association was like, no, we need to see him.
Yeah.
Because she walked in the day before the appointment was going to be.
Yeah.
So it was just like,
she didn't. She didn't feel guilty.
you weren't.
But
Yeah,
I wouldn't.
Which
I don't think I would have.
She wasn't
No, I
remorseful.
wouldn't.
She was
Yeah.
like, "This is what happened," and like of all the abuse, and they were like, everybody was super understanding, which makes sense. In this situation, it's just like, yeah, she went to jail for the other stuff. She was never going to come forward,
No.
for sure, unless she
No.
had to. But it was also just like, eventually you have to.
Basically, oh my gosh.
Like, eventually you were gonna have, like, what were you gonna do? Just hope that like you were gonna die.
just
and no
feel
one would
so
ask
bad
questions.
for the
Like,
fact that like she has, when she gets out of jail, what does she have?
she's got nothing.
She has nothing. Like, and then her family's gonna turn against her for sure.
Oh yeah, because she lied to them for 12 years.
Yeah,
Like she's a
so-
63-year-old woman that's not going to be in jail for up to 9 years. I mean, that's 70. So when she gets out, she'll like,
And she's never worked, so she doesn't
Yeah,
get a
she doesn't
pension
get a
or any of that.
pension. It's
So it's
just
just
like,
she's
wish-
that's it.
Yeah.
It's ruined for her.
and it's just like, why? Because her fucking psycho rapist father
Ruined her.
ruined her life,
It ruined her
and,
entire
yeah.
life, and probably ruined other girls' lives.
Yep.
And
Like, A photography club. And you know what?
That's there's probably
I
other...
believe I believe it exists.
Oh yeah.
I 100% believe it exists.
You
and it's
read
just
about those
that's
like
so
you
gross.
watch like the TV shows about like they talk about like the forums where they all get together
Yeah.
and jerk. That's disgusting.
Yep.
And you're just like, you know what? Probably. Yeah. Why wouldn't there be? That's just, yeah.
But yes, that is my story of Barbara Coombes and the murder of her father, Kenneth Coombes, the rapist, the alleged rapist,
The asshole.
the alleged
The piece
rapist.
of shit.
Yeah.
Definitely still a pedophile for sure.
100%. Like,
Yep.
She didn't take those photos of herself.
You can't prove it technically but I mean the
'cause he's
pictures
dead.
the pictures definitely
Yeah.
paint you the story that
But it's just like at the end of the day, she basically stole $190,000, and they were like, "You have to go to jail for
and
that."
it wasn't from the
Yeah.
government too
Yeah.
technically, and that's where it gets a little iffy, right?
Yeah.
So always
So
don't steal from the government.
Don't steal from the government. Don't steal from the government. Don't kill people just because they're people. Like, just don't kill people. Like, can we please just try to have a week where like nobody dies? That'd be really swell.
And then
that's my task.
I think I
That's
read
my
or
homework
watched
for you guys this week. Don't kill.
No. I was reading like a comic book called Sandman where like death disappears for a little bit, and so like no one dies.
I love when reading stories on stuff like that.
Yeah, but then like in like that story, like no one dies, and it's awful because people have to live in that pain. So it's like I hope no one gets murdered or accidental, because then there was that whole fucking Boeing 787. Oh my god, everything like it's all awful.
It is all awful. People just keep dying, Angela.
Yeah,
that's why we have this podcast.
Because people keep dying.
Because people just keep on dying.
And no matter what, we'll always have a new episode because no matter what, someone's going to die. Every week, several people die.
I mean, every day.
Every day. Every hour.
Dies.
Probably every minute.
And there's a lot of time to cover because there's a lot of history of death.
Yeah. In a lot of countries.
Yes, in a lot of countries. Thanks so much for listening to us. This episode, guys, is been kind of a little bit of a long one. I hope you guys made it through.
Don't die.
Don't die. We hope that you're here next week. And if you want to leave us please leave a review. Please like us, leave a review.
Be nice.
Be nice. You can send us an email at peoplekeepdying@gmail.com. You can find us on most social medias at People Keep Dying. And I hope you guys have a wonderful week.
And hope you enjoyed this episode.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.